Hi everyone, it's Leisha here. I just wanted to pop on for a few minutes today and talk to you about freedom. Um, it's a really interesting concept when we get into like freedom to be yourself, freedom to express yourself freely, freedom to be who you really are in the world. Um, because, we have this sort of mental perception of what that might look like and how that can show up. And then there's like the reality of it, right? And what's funny about the way that humans are set up and so interesting is that we have all these protective mechanisms that are really created and then perpetuated to keep us getting our core needs met, feeling love and security, feeling acceptance and safety. And these things happen in such deeply buried parts of our brain that it's really challenging to have a full sense of what's actually going on there. And, so I've started exploring this concept of freedom for myself over the last few years. I did a lot of intuitive development work and personal growth, spiritual growth, all kinds of things. Um, and, there was a point at which I felt very unclear in the process of all of that. I had taken in so much information about other people's beliefs and perceptions and structures and ideas of things that I felt extremely mixed up inside. It created sort of this confusion of like, well, what is really real then? And it was such an interesting thing to go through because, I think that I had a lot of personal judgments about my own capacity to understand. And, I went through this very linear process with teachers where I thought, well, they have a system that's better than my system, so I'll learn their system and see how it goes. I've always been one to try things out, test things out, see how they work before I take on any additional practices. But, I really had to come to terms with this at some point, that I had really been effectively released from previous patterns by certain teachers of mine. But then I had turned right around and in that same teaching had experienced now being programmed with a new set of patterns based on this specific teacher's belief system, structures, ideas, their own human perception of reality, right? And I think this is a really common thing. We are, as humans, we're more, much more able to replace system A with system B based on somebody else's teaching or perception versus get rid of system A and then discover who we really are. But that's the key of freedom, right? Freedom is the ability to like fully be who you are in the world and not to be limited by any patterns that you're running, any fears or concerns about how other people might perceive you, any ingrained self-perception, right? Wanting to see yourself as a certain way, wanting other people to see you as a certain way, wanting to fulfill the roles that you play in life in a certain way. These are all the things that prevent us from actually experiencing freedom, right? And so if you think about it, it's a pretty complex thing. It's not quite as simple as just like deciding that you're going to be free of all of that and then experiencing life as free of all of that. There's a lot of unwinding that needs to happen and really a lot of facing down the fears that are underlying these patterns for us, or the motivations. What are the reasons? Why are we doing this? Because that's what really allows us then to stop doing the thing we're doing without just replacing it with something else that gives us the same outcome, right? It's why it's so easy to go into people's work sometimes and, they can break you free of the previous limitations, but then, you get programmed right into their specific programs from there, the way that they want you to be, because it's just easier. It's just so much easier to take that on and to hand over your personal authority to somebody else and allow them to tell you how to be and how to show up and what's the right way or the most spiritual way or the correct structure according to their own very human perceptions. And we love that because it allows us to meet so many needs. We feel connected to that community now. Now we have a set of people who live by the same beliefs or ideas that we do. We have something to strive at. We love that, right? It's a challenge to be a new way. We have something to rise through the ranks of and to achieve, right? We can get really good at these new structures that we've taken on, and now we can use that as a system of achievement to get even more of a sense of inflated self, right? And acceptance from the community and love and all of these things. And, you know, it's not like this is evil stuff. It's not. It's just human. But I think it's really important to talk about the actuality of freedom, the true nature of freedom, and the way in which it, and I'm by no means claiming perfection in this, by the way, like I'm definitely still in the process, because it's a lot of work. But true freedom is really the ability to source your knowingness from within and to be that way. And you know, what's tricky about it is when we're running patterns, they're so ingrained that we can't always see them. It's why I'm a huge proponent of getting external support and feedback to notice where we're still holding on to an old way of being or an old pattern, and help us identify why we're running that pattern, what needs to heal around it, and how to move forward differently from that point onwards. So, you know, it's an interesting thing. I think when we get, especially it seems amplified right now, when we get to the start of the new year, people are like, oh, I'm going to become a new person. I'm going to do all these great things. I'm going to change my habits. And, you know, it's just, I think it's good to be really honest and real about what that takes, and, you know, what the goal or outcome that you desire really is, and how to go about that without just taking on a new system that's just as restrictive, or maybe a little bit more expansive, but still pretty restrictive to your true nature and your ability to be who you really are. And, you know, we know we're in that when we look at the different areas of our lives and see that things are not in the most empowered place, whether we're struggling in relationships or work or business or money. It's, you know, if we have those things going on, then we can identify that we're not living in our most expansive state. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on myself to get to this freedom, because it's really a fearlessness in a way, right? It's the willingness to risk all of the typical rewards that we are trying to achieve by running our patterns, and to risk just purely being who I really am in the world. That's a big thing. It's a really big thing. But there's so much, even in like a little bit of change here. And like the last year has been really accelerated change in this area for me. But even in a little bit of change, there's massive repercussions in the world, right? Because it just creates such a tremendous shift. So yeah, you know, that's what I want to share about, you know, really setting a clear intention about what your desired outcomes are as you do your personal growth work, spiritual growth work, whatever it is that you're doing. Is the desired outcome, you know, to achieve within a set system or structure that already exists here? Is your desired outcome to just be fully free, to be who you really are, right? To achieve this soul level freedom, where, you know, none of it is about replacing programs, but it's just about really being able to gain mastery over tuning into what's really true for you and being that out in the world. Which is kind of a scary place, because there's no certainty in that space, right? Like there's no assuredness that in the next moment you're going to do the same thing that you did last time this thing happened, right? Or whatever that is. It's like you become a very fluid version of yourself versus a structured, predictable, you know, kind of repeating the same patterns and cycles version of yourself. So there is a risk there. There is a challenge. There is a stretch. And I think it's an interesting space to explore, and then to look at what holds you back from that, if that is your desired outcome, right? Not everybody's going to want to go down that path. Totally makes sense. Not an easy path. And there's no, I don't want to put a value judgment on it. Like, oh, if you don't, you know, gain full freedom on a soul level, then you're not really doing the work. That's bullshit, frankly. And it comes from ego, but really it's, you know, what is right for you? That's the key. What resonates for you? What feels true to you? What do you actually desire to create with your experience on this planet at this time, in this body that frankly you're not going to be in forever? And to be honest with yourself, right? Not to just say, well, she says I should want this, so now that's what I want, but to really feel inward. What do I want? What is it that I desire? You know, because I felt inward a lot, and then I realized that I desire freedom, and it scared the shit out of me, but that was what I really wanted. And so, you know, a lot of my experiences become dedicated to that. And it is intense and it is hard, but I want it, so I don't care. Right? Not that I don't struggle at times, but that inner clarity that drives me also helps carry me through those moments of difficulty. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that today. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. Let me know. I'm always happy to have a dialogue about this kind of thing. It's an exploration for me. I'm not claiming to know so much more than other people. It's just, my experience has been that this has been a really powerful place to explore. So let me know if you have questions. Of course, if you desire to work with me in any way, send me a message and I'm happy to chat about what might be a good fit. And just sending you lots of love. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me today. Many blessings to you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.